not do this just yet.
Welcome everyone, I got a fun video lined up for you guys. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you have any questions about the content that you see in this video, feel free to comment on the YouTube channel or stop by my Twitch channel at Sniper1232. I'd be happy to answer any questions you got about the build, and thanks again, enjoy the video. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So for today's video, I got a max Block Cyclone champion. This is a boss killing specialist with very good overall map clear, and it's going to be one of the more tanky builds that we've showed on the channel for quite some time. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to bust out a T16 map. I'm going to talk some of the points of the build while you can kind of see the clear, and then we'll get into the gems, the gear, the tree, the bandits, the pantheon, all the minor stuff. So let's go ahead and fire up a map and see the build in action. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. What we got here is a max block, attack block, not spell block, Cyclone Gladiator. Now, what this build does insanely well is bossing, alright? And it's got above average map clearing. So if you're looking for something that's going to smash your Awakeners, your Uber Elders, your Shapers, with minimal to no issues whatsoever, this is the build I recommend. While we're rolling around in maps, we'll be using Sand Stance. You can see that in the bottom right corner. And whenever we get on a boss, we switch over to Blood Stance if we need a little extra DPS. But bossing is a cakewalk with this build. And with the max block, the survivability goes through the roof. So it's got a couple different layers of defense. So it's going to be blinding monsters on hit with the Paradoxica. It's going to be using Sand Stance. It's going to be using Vol Molten Shell with a cast when damage taken that you saw just right there. Also, it's going to be using Blood Rage to get some frenzy charges, and then its DPS is probably sitting around, if in perfect situations with the Savior Boys attacking on the target, probably around 18 million DPS. Now, what I wanted to create was something that could do all the heist content without having to worry about too much. So as you'll see right here, just instantly phase the boss. Done. Move on to the next phase. You can see the cast when damage taken Molten Shell. So go down the channel here, and then when we go to fight the next boss, we're going to be popping our Vol Molten Shell just because we have it available, and we'll literally take 0 damage from this boss. So pop Blood Rage, switch to Sand Dance, and boss done. Okay, let's talk about gear. So what I'm going to kind of explain here is why I have what I have and what you can do as a budget alternative. There are a lot of expensive pieces in here, but you don't need every single one of the expensive pieces to make this build shine very well. So we'll start with the weapons. Our first choice is Paradoxica and then a Savior. You want to get the highest damage Paradoxica you can. Preferably you want the blind on hit as your phys damage. So you can see here it has physical damage and chance to blind enemies. If you get the attack speed quality, that's just a bonus for more DPS. But if you can't get that, just get the highest DPS Paradoxica you can. This one's north of 200 phys DPS, but anything 180 plus would be, you know, just as good for clear. Also, we get a Savior. They're super cheap this league. Highly recommend. Really good, helping out boost our single target damage. So next, we'll move on to the gloves. Like I said, this is a max block dual wield character, so it's a little unorthodox how we have to build it. So I went with these Crusader gloves. These are budget. You can get these for cheap. I went for a big dex and a big block roll on it and some life. So that's all you got to do here. Some block, chance, and your dex and your life and some resistances, you're good to go. You can get much better. You could go spike gloves if you want to go even more min-max, and that'd be just fine. Belt, this is pretty much going to be your standard choice, a Rastlathus coil. If you can't get a Rastlathus coil, go ahead and get yourself a Stygian Vice belt, maybe one with some dex on it or some int to help out with your stats, because one of the more problems with these kind of builds is dex. The rapiers always require like 212 dex, so that's one of the problems. And also we need some intelligence for our gems, so, and skills. So number 1, best in slot, Rosatha's Coil. Headhunter if you want super mega clear. If you want your budget option, Stygian Vice with attributes and life. Next up, let's go to the boots. The best boots you can get are elusive tailwind boots. You're going to give you some crit, some movement speed, a little bit of dodge with the so some more defense. If you can't do this, just go for tailwind boots. You'll like the movement speed. It helps out Cyclone. The pain of Cyclone is that movement speed while you're cycloning is a little slow. So tailwind kind of helps neutralize that a little bit. If you got the money for it, go ahead and get yourself an Awakener Orb and get yourself Elusive and Tailwind. Next up, our rings. It's a pretty simple choice. This is just a life with Assassin's Mark. We put -3 mana to channeling skills on every single piece of gear to make our Cyclone free. So that way we can reserve out our mana. So Assassin's Mark with some life and the channeling. This is just a big resistance ring with a little bit of DPS on it, the fizz damage. And then this is the only piece of jewelry where you kind of have to get a little more specific. You really have to get the Pride reservation reduction. And I got pretty lucky. I multi-modded made this myself. But you want Pride and you want it to be on either a Dex base or an Onyx base. You need those attributes. Otherwise, you're going to have to get them in your jewel slots, which makes the jewels cost so much more money. So focus on getting Pride, life, attributes. Make sure you have room for the -3 to mana for Cyclone as well. Last up, we got our helm. Our helm is just a generic attack speed enchant Cyclone helm. Life resistances, nothing else special. A little bit of intelligence, and you're good to go. You got many options you could do this. You could go Abyssus if you wanted to go all in on the damage. You could do a whole bunch of different things. I designed this to be as tanky as I could without selling out too much one way or the other. So try to make as balanced as a character as I could. Our standard flask, we're going to have a Seething Divine for bleed. Rumi's Concoction is super important. We are only at the max block when we have the Rumi's Concoction. You'll have it up quite a bit of time. Like I said, you smoke bosses, so the phases, transitions will be pretty quick. You should have dang near 100% uptime on your Rumis. Focus on getting one that's at least 18% or higher. Then we're going to get a Freeze Diamond Flask for the lucky crits, bring our effective crit up into the 90s. I got this Bottled Faith to drop. You absolutely do not need it. If you can get it, great. If not, just put a quick Silver Flask in there for some quality of life, and you'll be moving around the map much faster than you saw me in the demo. Last up, we have the Lion's Roar for big DPS increases. A lot of people hate the knockback on Lion's Roar, but remember, this is primarily a boss build, so I went with the Lion's Roar because a lot of the bosses you can't knock back, and it's just a pure 25% more multiplier to your build. So that covers up all the gear. Next up, we're going to break down some the passive tree and the jewels and the clusters. Alright, let's go ahead and break down the passive tree. So, like I said, we are a champion. We'll be getting Master of Metal, Unstoppable Hero, Conqueror, and Worthy Foe. So, what I'm going to focus on here is showing you guys kind of how do we achieve the max block status. So you'll notice over here we're taking this whole dual wield cluster. It's giving us Blade Barrier, which is a bunch of blocks chance while using dual wielding, and we'll be taking Swagger, which gives us a chance to get endurance and frenzy charges when we block. Super nice quality of life, but this is how we're going to be achieving the max block for a dual wielder, which is not exactly easy to do, but we were able to accomplish it. Every single one of our jewels will have +1 chance to block attack damage while dual wielding. As you can see, I went for life and crit multi. If you can pick up a resistance one, that's just a bonus. Alright, we are using the Watcher's Eye with additional impales while using Pride. It is a big damage multiplier. You don't need it, but highly recommend. They're going up and up in price every day in the league. A lot of people are using impale builds these days, so if you can't afford it, don't sweat it. Just get yourself another big crit multi-gem. Maybe get yourself a Watcher's Eye with attack damage, while using Pride instead of impale or something along those lines. And then we're going to be using one cluster wheel. So the cluster wheel we'll be using is attack while dual wielding. Ideally, you just need to get this node, Deadly Repertoire, and Deadly Repertoire, Smite the Weak, and Combat Rhythm. You can either get Combat Rhythm and Deadly Repertoire, or Smite the Weak and Deadly Repertoire if you can't afford to get the 3 prop 8 passive jewel. Next up, we're going to get a couple mediums. One medium is going to be a channeling, and one is going to be a critical strike chance. So the medium is going to, for the channeling, is going to get precise focus and stoic focus. This is some block, as well as some crit multiplier, as long as we've been channeling for 1 second. Hey, we're cycloning, we're always channeling. And then just flop one of those jewels that I talked about earlier. So for the crit one, we're going with Precise Commander and Skullbreaker. Just big crit multi, and more crit multi is what you sum this build up as. So here's a look at the passive tree. I will have the POB in the description below. So let's go ahead and move on to our gem links real quick. So like I just said, all the information is in the POB below, but we're going to be using Cyclone with Close Combat, Impale, Fortify, melee fizz damage, and brutality. Best part about this build, no gem swaps, just do whatever you got to do to get the map done, and you don't have to put in increased AoE or conk effect. You just roll with your standard setup for the whole map. Blood Rage with Blood Magic, Enduring Cry, Blood Magic, faster attacks, and Leap Slam. So I should note this real quick, we do take Call to Arms for instant war cries. That way we bind Enduring Cry to our left mouse button, and as we walk around, we'll constantly be shouting, getting a bunch of regen as well as endurance charges against bosses, so we'll always have 3 endurance charges against bosses. Next up, you got Molten Shell with your increased duration and your cast when damage taken. I took it up to level 8 Molten Shell with a level 5 cast when damage taken. I just wanted to proc more often than not and not worry about, super spiky hits. Then we got Blood Stance with an Enlighten and a Dread Banner. And then last up, Flesh and Stone, Herald of Purity, Pride, and an Enlighten. So you can see I don't have any Enlighten level 4, it's just a 3 and a 2. You can go with a Enlighten 4, probably free up some more mana. You'd also free up some gem slots, and you could put like a Vol Ancestral War Chief for more burst damage for bosses, but I found we didn't need it, so I didn't bother with it. I didn't fluff my tooltip damage with the War Chief. So that is gems, and that is the skill tree. Thank you so much, guys, for checking out the channel, watching the video. Really do appreciate it. If you got any questions about the build, the gear, the items, pantheons, whatever, I have the POB listed in the comments below. If you want to ask a more specific question, feel free to stop by my Twitch channel. I stream daily, and I love helping new players out. We do a lot of cool things on the channel. We help with boss killing. We do free crafting as long as you have the materials, and all sorts of other good stuff on the Twitch channel. So again, thank you so much, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.